Hi, I'm Rick Edwards, and today we're going to be talking about the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, found in Genesis chapter 19. This is not a story you typically find in children's curriculum, but it's a story that I don't think you need to be terribly afraid of if you'll approach it carefully. The core truth of the story itself, as found in chapter 19, is that God is patient and gives people great opportunity to follow Him, but sooner or later He will act to keep evil from growing too much. Now there are elements of the story that come from chapter 18, but we're not going to be really looking at that. Rather, we're going to be looking at the devastation that comes in chapter 19. So some of the highlights of the story. God was not anxious to arbitrarily punish the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. Rather, He needed to act in order to restrain the further growth of evil and devastation. So really what we're talking about is that there's devastation and destruction and suffering and death that comes as a result of sin and evil in the world. And the more it goes on, the more suffering and death and destruction it caused. So God found it necessary to act. And if you go back to chapter 18, you discover there that God says, "A great cry has come up to me from the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah." So He needed to act. Another highlight is that Abraham was able to intercede for the cities and appeal to God's compassionate grace. But his intercession in chapter 18 is not the primary point of the story found in chapter 19. So if you're focusing on chapter 19, I wouldn't worry too much about going back to chapter 18 and picking up Abraham's intercession. It's important, but it's a long story, and today I would just encourage you to focus on the destruction and devastation that comes in chapter 19. Another highlight, sin and evil will grow without God's restraining hand. The more it grows, the greater is its devastation on people and creation. So God sees the devastation of evil, and He is motivated by it. So He sees what's going on in the world, sees what's going on in these cities, and He determines at some point that He has to act in order to restrain it and keep it from growing and destroying even more lives. So finally, one other highlight is that Lot and his family, especially his wife, had clearly been influenced by the evil of the culture within which they were living. Christians should be diligent. We should be diligent to protect ourselves against the power and influence of evil in our culture. It's an important truth. I would not, however, encourage you to actually focus on this one with children. It's an important thing, I think, for adults to understand, but I'm not sure I would spend much time on that, if any, talking to the kids about it. Some points of interest that I think are important. The sin described among the inhabitants of the city was that of rampant homosexuality. It's clear when you read the text. This suggests that once a culture has placed its hand of blessing on homosexuality, it is not far from judgment. Again, this is a lesson or a truth that I think it's important for adults to understand. I would not attempt to get into this with kids. Another point of interest, younger children don't need to understand the graphic details of the homosexual lust described in the story. I would just avoid that altogether. It should suffice that children know the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were doing very bad things that hurt themselves and others. And God had to act in order to keep that suffering and pain from expanding and going on. So how do we support this story on Sunday School Zone? Well, we have a teaching picture that you can get either in this larger size, 11 by 17, or in the standard 8.5 by 11. Both of them have the illustration on there, and both of them have the story printed on the back. So you can print the picture and tell the story while you're showing the picture. This particular one I took to a print shop and had it done on cardstock, which makes it very, very nice. It's something that can be kept for a while and reused in future stories. So we have the teaching picture, both small and large. We have printable activities of different kinds. This is very normal, printable 8.5 by 11 printable activities, worksheets, crossword puzzles, spot the differences, things like that on the website. And then a story profile is provided there as well. And basically what we've done is we've taken the story, we've summarized it, we've taken some commentary about the story, we've taken these highlights that we've included here, the points of interest. It's all there in 2 or 3 pages that you can print out easily for you as a teacher. That's not really designed for kids, but it's designed to help you as a teacher understand the story. So that's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. Again, the core truth, God is patient and gives people great opportunity to follow Him, but sooner or later he will act to keep evil from growing too much. So, good luck teaching it. Hope it goes well for you. Thank you.